Welcome to another video from Gweilo 60, the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. This is the newest thing that the United States has come up with. It's a bill that basically, if it was produced, that product was produced in Xinjiang Autonomous Region of mainland China, you have to prove, the company that sells that product has to prove to the American government that it wasn't produced using Uyghur Muslim forced labor for it to be able to be sold in the United States of America. As of 2 days ago, Marco Rubio, little Marco Rubio, as Donald Trump used to call him, this was his brainchild. What do you think? What do you think? Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? So it's not just cotton. It's not just tomatoes. It's not just solar products anymore. It's everything produced in Xinjiang is basically sanctioned now by the United States. Because how, you tell me, how can you prove that forced labor wasn't used when forced labor isn't used? You know what I mean? Like, you say it long enough, you say it loud enough, you use umpteen trillion media outlets to say the same thing over and over and over again, and the people out there, you, the viewer, starts to believe it. No forced labor in Xinjiang Autonomous Region. I've been there. I've seen it. As far as I'm concerned, being a retired guy, all labor is forced labor. I don't care who it is or where you come from. If you gotta work, you're being forced to work, and you're being forced to work for that almighty dollar. But the Americans are saying that these poor people in Xinjiang Autonomous Region are being forced to work. Now let's switch this around a little bit. These are allegations. These are allegations, reports, Adrian Zenz, and all this other stuff that you hear out there in the mainstream media about Xinjiang Autonomous Region. It's competition. You know how I feel about it. It's competition. It's blackening the eye of the competitor, being China, and all of that stuff. But then again, you look at Georgia, the state of Georgia, and they just busted a whole bunch of people that are immigrating Mexicans and Central Americans into work on the farms in Georgia. Forced labor. Dig it with your hands. Onions, 20 cents for a pail. Stuff like that. 2 people died because of this forced labor. One person that they know of was repeatedly raped in Georgia, in the United States. Forced labor brought people in from other countries using actual work visas issued by the American government. And then they make a bill against alleged forced labor in China. Shouldn't they be looking at all of the stuff that's going on in their country? Forced labor, forced prostitution, kidnapping, trafficking, all of these things are rampant in the United States. They don't worry about that. We got that under control. It's happening, yes, just so long as we acknowledge that it's happening, that makes it okay. China is not acknowledging that it's happening, so that doesn't make it okay. So now we have to make these bills to make it so that they'll own up to this. Even if it isn't happening, they have to own up to it, because if they don't, we're going to sanction all of the products out of this area. And when you do that, what do you think is going to happen to the... Oh, and you notice my backgrounds are nice. If you don't want to listen to me, at least watch my videos for my backgrounds. So back to what I was saying. What do you think this is going to do to the people of Xinjiang, a very poor autonomous region of China? Do you think it's going to create employment? Do you think it's going to make anybody's life better in Xinjiang Autonomous Region? No. What you're doing is you're shutting down solar, you're shutting down tomatoes, you're shutting down cotton, you're shutting down all the other products that are being produced by these people in this area of China, and when you do that, you're taking their jobs away. You're making it so that they can't supply housing for their children, food on the table, all of these different things. So the American government is actually making the lives of these people in this area of China a lot worse. Do they think they're making the lives of these people in Xinjiang better by doing this? No, no, no. They want you to believe that. They want you to believe that they have a big heart and they're fighting against human rights abuses and all of this other stuff. But they don't care about that. Seriously, they don't care about that. What they care about is, what does Georgia sell a lot of? Cotton, tomatoes, auto parts, motors, things like that. In Xinjiang, you got cotton, you got tomatoes. So why wouldn't China turn around and look at Georgia and say, I think we should sanction everything from that state of the United States unless they can prove to the Chinese government that it wasn't produced using forced labor. It doesn't even have to be Georgia. It can be from Mississippi, Louisiana, it can be from Montana, it can be from California, it can be from any state around the United States, because you really don't have to prove that there's forced labor there. All you have to do is say it over and over and over again so that people think that's the way it is. And as people think that's the way it is, then it's easier to pass these bills through Congress. 428 to 1 or something like that, or 478. I don't even know the number. I read it once, but the idea is that if you say it long enough, if you say it and people will believe it, well then all of these bills can be passed and you can take jobs away from the Uyghur people, you can take jobs away from the Muslim people and the Han people and all of the people that work and live in Xinjiang Autonomous Region here in mainland China. But is it doing anybody any good? No. But I think that China should reciprocate. I think it's time that China stood up and said, fuck that shit. We're not going to put up with this shit anymore, and start sanctioning states in the United States. How long do you think these people in the United States, the farmers, the manufacturers, would put up with something like that as retribution for fake news, as Donald Trump would say? How long do you think they'd put up with it if they weren't making the money this year as they did last year, because the United States government is sanctioning this area, so this area sanctions your area, and you're just fodder, you're just collateral damage as far as the government is concerned. And their reasoning for this new bill is they say that we don't think that any American would want to buy a product that is produced in a concentration camp by forced labor of a Muslim Uyghur minority. That's a mouthful and a half, isn't it? You know what I mean? So the Chinese can say, in Chinese of course, that we don't want to buy any product made in Georgia that might have been, because you don't even have to be real here anymore. It could just be speculation. We think, that's the key word there, that it might have been produced or picked or whatever by a Central American, Guatemalan, El Salvador, Mexican worker that was used as slave labor by the American government and the farmers or the manufacturers of the state of Georgia. So there you go. So you can say whatever you want, and your government can pass whatever bill they want, just so long as they've already fed this fake news to the citizens of their country. So the citizens of their country look at it and say, oh yeah, okay, I'll go along with that because they did this, even though it's alleged this and alleged that. It doesn't matter anymore. The gloves are off. The Chinese people are smart to this. They're not going to put up with this, and I can guarantee you there will be retribution in sanctions against certain things coming out of the United States. I've actually been watching what's been going on over the last 3-4 years, because I'm sort of entrenched into the Chinese community, not only here in China, but in the Canadian Chinese community too. Not only there, but I have people that watch my videos all over the world. A lot of Chinese people from all over the world watch my videos and comment in the comment section. They send me private emails, they send me private messages. They tell me what happens in their lives. They tell me how unsafe they feel in the United States and Canada, in places like Detroit, in places like Florida, in places like California, in places like Vancouver and Toronto, Canada. They tell me all of these things. And they say that it's getting more dangerous every year. And right now they feel that it's probably the most dangerous for them that it's ever been in the history of them living in those countries. All of this fear, all of this danger, all of these things actually stem from rhetoric like you're seeing right now. The Chinese government is doing this against the Uyghur people. The Chinese government, the Chinese people, you don't distinguish between the two because one is the same as the other. 90% of the people of China back their government. So when you say the Chinese government, you mean the Chinese people. So they're looked at a different way now around the world because of this rhetoric, because Marco Rubio's and Donald Trump's and Winston Sturgill's and Matthew Tai's and all of these people around the world are spouting hate against China. And it ends up costing people in China their jobs. It ends up costing people around the world, Chinese people or Asian people around the world, it ends up costing them their quality of life and sometimes their life. So now what the Chinese government has to do, or should do, is sanction everything coming out of Georgia until they prove that it wasn't done through forced labor. And see how the Georgia farmers like that. See how the peanut farmers, the cotton farmers, yes, the cotton farmers, see how they like that when nothing of their products, even secondary, third, tertiary, are in clothing or whatever, in tomato paste, it doesn't matter, aren't allowed to be sold in China. Simple. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, guys. And you're cutting out 20% of the whole world's consumers by making this one little mistake. But it's not a little mistake, it's a big mistake to the people of the Xinjiang Autonomous Region because you're costing them their jobs. So when you understand where all of this is coming from, dealing with the United States, dealing with Canada, dealing with Great Britain, dealing with Australia and New Zealand, when you see that they are trying to make China look bad on the world stage because they're in competition, they're the Five Eyes countries, they are trying to belittle China, they are trying to make China look bad on the world stage, they are doing whatever they can to make you not buy their products. And it seems to be working because now the United States, 350 or 360 million people, will not be buying Xinjiang products anytime in the near future. But then again, 1.4 billion Chinese could stop buying Georgia products. Oh yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is that, you know, it works both ways, guys. If you're willing to sanction a country on allegations, or a section of that country on allegations, you're willing to cost people their livelihoods, their jobs in a place like Xinjiang, which is basically a very poor area of China. If you're willing to politicize something like that and make it harder for these people that you say that you're there to help, but you're making their lives more difficult, I gotta call bullshit on that. It's one of those things. So when you do this, you're politicizing their jobs, you're politicizing their lives, you're politicizing their existence here in mainland China. They've got it hard enough as it is because they're in a faraway place that's a desert, and it, you know, the climate, all these things that go along with it. Their neighbors are rough areas too. So now you're trying to make it even worse for them. Why would you do that? To destabilize the area so that they can work on behalf of these, let's call them shithole countries that are around Xinjiang area, to help destabilize China, to help, you know what I mean? Like, it's so transparent what the American government, what the Five Eyes governments are trying to do, that it's pitiful. It's actually pitiful that they would go that direction. But I think China should step up to the plate on this one and just return the sanctions on one of the states or two of the states. Do it by square kilometers, because Xinjiang's a pretty big place, eh? And I think that would be fair. Anyway, that's my rant for the day, and I figure it's a good rant. I think the background, if you didn't want to hear me or listen to me or even look at me, you can just look over my shoulder and see how beautiful it is here in Nanning, Guangxi Autonomous Region, mainland China, and that makes it all better. Anyway, that's another video from Gweilo 60. If you like this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe, push that share button. Don't forget to resubscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell. And whatever you do, don't forget to put a couple bucks on the Children's Patreon account. It's for a good cause. Thanks for watching. Peace out. Bye now.